It was a hot summer day on the California coast. My name is Anthony, and that morning, I was headed to Los Angeles for a business meeting. The road was as crowded as ever, and the traffic seemed like an endless metal snake. I was driving my Chevrolet Impala. The radio was playing an old 80s hit, and the sun was shining high in the sky. I felt the air conditioning trying to counteract the external heat, while the engine's roar and the rhythm of the music kept me company on the long journey. I was driving on the I-5 freeway, one of the busiest in California. Suddenly, a truck in front of me swerved abruptly. I didn't have time to react. The last sound I remember was a deafening crash, followed by the screeching of brakes and the dull noise of crumpling metal. Then, darkness. I don't know how much time passed, but when I reopened my eyes, everything was silent. I felt no pain, but a strange sense of lightness. I looked around and realized I was no longer in my car. The familiar landscape of the California highway had vanished, replaced by a dense and palpable darkness. My mind was enveloped in a confused fog, trying to understand what was happening. I tried to move, but my body didn't respond as it should. I felt like I was floating, with no reference points. Suddenly, a faint light appeared in the distance. I approached it, or maybe the light came closer to me, and I began to distinguish shapes. The ground beneath me was arid and desolate, covered by a thin layer of ash. In the distance, I could see flames licking the night sky. The heat was oppressive, and the air had a sharp smell of sulfur. I began to understand that I was not in an ordinary place. I was in hell. My rational mind tried to find an explanation. Maybe it was all a dream or a hallucination caused by the accident, but everything seemed too real. As I tried to orient myself, a figure appeared before me. The figure approached slowly, wrapped in an aura of flickering flames. When it was close enough, I recognized it immediately. It was Michael Jackson. I couldn't believe my eyes. The king of pop, the musical icon I had admired for years, was standing in front of me, in a place that seemed to be hell. "Anthony," he said with a voice I recognized immediately. "Welcome." "Michael Jackson?" I stammered in disbelief. "What are you doing here? And where am I?" Michael looked at me with sad eyes. "You are in the afterlife, Anthony, and I'm here to show you some things no one knows." He explained that after his death, he had wandered in this place, trapped between the world of the living and hell. There were things he needed to reveal, secrets that had to be known. His face bore an expression of deep sadness and resignation, as if he carried the weight of all his guilt and regrets. As we walked, Michael told me about his life and experiences. He spoke of his successes and failures, the inner battles he had fought, and the personal demons he had faced. His voice, once so powerful and melodious, was now veiled with melancholy. "Many think they know everything about me," he said with a sigh. "But there are truths no one has ever known." He spoke of the unbearable pressures of fame, the betrayals of those he considered friends, and the internal struggles to maintain an image the world wanted to see. He also spoke of how he had sought redemption, how he had tried to find peace through music and art. Every word he said seemed to carry a piece of his tormented soul. "And yet," he continued, "I ended up here. But it's not the end. There's something bigger happening, and you need to know." As we walked, Michael showed me visions of other places in hell. I saw tormented souls, people who had lived seemingly normal lives but were now suffering for their sins. I also saw souls of celebrities, some of whom I'd only heard of. Each encounter left me with a sense of unease and reflection. Michael explained that hell was not just a place of punishment, but also a place of reflection and learning. Each soul had to face its own guilt and try to understand how it could have acted differently. "You see, Anthony," Michael said, "it's not just about suffering here. It's a place where you can still learn, where you can find a sort of inner redemption. But it's a difficult path, and not everyone is ready to face it." He showed me a group of souls walking slowly, each carrying an invisible burden. "These people," he explained, "are facing their personal demons. They're trying to understand what brought them here and what they can do to find peace." I realized that Michael was not just a guide for me, but also for many other lost souls. He was a beacon of hope in an otherwise dark and desolate place, and his mission was to help others find their way, just as he was doing with me. At the end of our journey, Michael took me to a place that seemed different from the others. There was a surreal calm, and the infernal heat was replaced by a pleasant coolness. We sat on a rock, and Michael looked at me intensely. "Anthony, you have to go back," he said. "Your life is not over. You still have much to do." "But what should I do?" I asked, confused. Michael smiled at me. "You have to tell what you have seen and learned. The world needs to know that there's more than what we see, that our actions have deep consequences, and that there's always a chance for redemption." Suddenly, I felt a strong jolt, and everything turned white. When I reopened my eyes, I found myself in a hospital bed. Around me were doctors and nurses bustling about. I felt weak, but I was alive. In the following days, I reflected on everything I had seen and heard. I couldn't ignore the experience I had lived. I decided to write my story, to share the revelations Michael Jackson had given me. I knew it would be a challenge, but it was a mission I couldn't ignore. My experience in hell had profoundly changed me. I began to see life with new eyes, appreciating every moment, and trying to make a difference in others' lives. I told my story to anyone who would listen, hoping to inspire others to reflect on their actions and seek redemption. Michael Jackson's revelations were shocking, but they had given me a new perspective on life and death. I had learned that despite mistakes and failures, there's always a chance to change and find peace. And I knew this was the most important lesson I could share with the world. In the following months, my life changed radically. I began to dedicate myself to charity, helping those in need and trying to bring some light into others' lives. Every time I met someone in difficulty, I thought of Michael and his words. I realized that redemption was not only for those who had already passed into the afterlife, but also for us who were still alive. One evening, as I reflected on everything I had experienced, I decided to organize an event to share my story with a wider audience. I wanted Michael's message to reach as many people as possible. The event was held in a small garage of a neighbor, and at least 40 people came, even from outside my town, who had heard about this conference. I told about my accident, my journey into the afterlife, and Michael Jackson's revelations. I spoke of the tormented souls I had seen, the lessons I had learned, and the hope I had found. When I finished my speech, everyone was silent. Then slowly, they began to applaud. It was a warm and sincere applause, and I felt a deep gratitude for being able to share my story. After the event, many people came to thank me and share their personal experiences. Some told me about their inner struggles. Others spoke of their hopes and dreams. I felt that my journey was not over, but that it was only the beginning of something bigger. I realized that I had a mission, a calling to continue spreading the message of hope and redemption. Every encounter with people enriched me and gave me new strength. My life, which once seemed so ordinary, had become extraordinary. And all thanks to that encounter with Michael Jackson in the afterlife. One of the most touching experiences was when I met a mother who had lost her son in a car accident. She told me how she had lost hope and how my story had given her the strength to move forward. She hugged me with tears in her eyes, and in that moment, I felt a deep and meaningful connection. I understood that I was not alone, that there were other people seeking answers, and that I could be a beacon of hope for them. During one of these trips, in Japan, I met a Buddhist monk who spoke to me about the similarities between my experience and the Buddhist concepts of karma and reincarnation. It was an enlightening encounter that further enriched my understanding of spirituality. I realized that despite different religious beliefs, there was a common thread that united all people: the desire to find meaning and peace. As I continued my journey of spreading the message of hope, I also found time to reflect on myself and my path. I realized that my experience in hell was not just a punishment, but a blessing in disguise. It had given me a new perspective on life, taught me the importance of forgiveness and compassion, and showed me that there's always a chance for redemption, regardless of our past mistakes. One day, while reflecting on my life and the people I had met, I received a letter from a young musician thanking me for sharing my story. He told me how my experience had inspired him to pursue his dreams and try to make a difference in the world through music. His letter touched me deeply and reminded me once again of the importance of sharing the message of hope and redemption. In moments of solitude, I often thought of Michael Jackson and everything he had revealed to me. I wondered how he was doing, if he had found the peace he was seeking. I knew his soul was still on a journey, seeking answers and understanding, just like me. But I also knew that his message continued to live through the people he had touched and through me. My life had taken a direction I never imagined. From a simple businessman, I had become a messenger of hope, traveling the world and sharing my experience. I was grateful for every day, for every encounter, for every smile and tear I shared with people. I knew my journey was still long, but I was ready to face it, with a heart full of hope and a mind open to new experiences. And so, I continue my journey, trying to make a difference one step at a time. And every night, before falling asleep, I thank Michael Jackson for showing me the way, for teaching me that, despite everything, there's always a chance for redemption. And I hope that one day, our souls will meet again, in a place of peace and light, where we can finally find the peace we so desire. This is my story, my testimony, and I hope that by reading these words, you too can find hope, redemption, and the strength to face life's challenges with courage and compassion. Because in the end, we are all on this journey together, trying to find our place in the great mystery of existence.